calculation was to end the war, you had to go to the most accessible pain point that existed. And their assessment was that the Israelis actually would tolerate a tremendous amount of pain as long as the US was bombing Iran. So if you wanted to inflict so much damage on the other side, so that the other side said, you know what, let's stop this, Israel was had a pain point that was too distant. Whereas if you struck the GCC, if you closed the Strait of Hormuz, you struck American bases, and in the beginning they were doing everything they could to inflict significant American casualties, and they were successful in the first couple of days of the war with the attacks that they did in Kuwait, in which a very large number of American soldiers were injured, and some of them were also killed. That was, they went all out trying to get as many as possible either injured or killed in order to make this too costly for the US to continue. So the American pain point was relatively accessible, but the problem was that they didn't have enough targets. They had bases, but the bases had been vacated. So they were looking for where are the hotel rooms in which some of these American soldiers had been housed after having left the bases. The US Navy was keeping itself 3,000 kilometers away from Iranian shorelines to make it as difficult as possible for the Iranians to hit them. So the most accessible pain point and targets were in the GCC states and the global economy. So they went after that to raise oil prices, get these countries to really start pressing for some sort of ceasefire, and eventually making sure that the higher oil prices would translate into very, very bad economic and political situation for Trump at home. Whereas if they had put all of their efforts on striking the Israelis, as long as the US was still in the war, the Israelis were clearly willing to take a lot of hits as long as they saw Iran destroyed. Now, in this current situation, the Israelis have not directly targeted the Iranians. If they did, I'm pretty sure the Iranians would strike back at them. But when the US is attacking, I mean, again, they didn't strike, in their view, Kuwait. They struck an American base in Kuwait. So they were trying to strike American targets. It's just the problem that many of those targets are not that effective any longer because they're empty. And this is an important point for a different question. What's the point of the US having 19 or so bases in the region if every time it wants to go to war, it has to vacate and empty those bases? Yeah. It tells you the lack of utility and, frankly, the targets that they are. And it's very costly for the US because the Iranians have inflicted a tremendous amount of damage, but not a lot of human damage, since the US was essentially clever enough to understand he needed to vacate them.
And the other question I had was, there's very clearly a divergence. There's very clearly disagreement, at least within the American intelligence apparatus and the American military and their assessment, their capabilities, and their risk profile versus what Israel has been telling America over and over again. The idea that you could do something similar to the Maduro operation. I mean, that clearly was wrong. And it became such a spectacular failure that what Trump thought he was going to have was maximum leverage going to China, turned into maximum leverage for China. And he's already made tremendous concessions to China, restricting $14 billion worth of weapons transfers that were supposed to go to Taiwan and things of that nature, totally conceding to China's demands, which is, I think, ultimately good. I mean, it cools off the Taiwanese Strait, but certainly not good for the blob and their framework and how they wanted to always advance against China. Now, at what point is Trump going to say, okay, you have, pardon my French, fucked me over too many times to the Israeli side, and tell them to dial it back? And why do you think that hasn't happened yet?
First, I think that's a really important question because many of us really hope that he would say that on day one when he took office.
Yes.
That he would, because, remember, the narrative during the campaign and the speeches at the RNC were focusing. I mean, look at Don Jr.'s speech. He was praising the appointment of J.D. Vance and saying this is a huge blow to the neocons. We're going to really go against the war lobby. things of that nature. So, they pumped up a lot of expectation, perhaps naively, that they would be serious about this. And what we may not have paid as much attention to, although people like Eli Clifton at Quincy, one of my colleagues and co-founders, always was arguing this point, is you got to follow the money. Yes, they're saying a lot of these different things. It resonates with the Republican and the MAGA base, but at the same time, Miriam Adelson is coming in with, what was it, $200 million?
250, yeah.
Yeah, 250, and they will ultimately have a tremendous amount of influence. And they surely have. So, there was always that type of a balancing. There was never going to be a clear cut and clean situation in which he would completely go in the direction of the more anti-war elements within his administration. The problem is that the balance that he struck is one that is shocking to a lot of people who were part of his base. Seeing what he did in June, seeing what he did in Venezuela, and then going along with not just a war, but a major war that even was, overtly a regime change war. It's just stunning that he went along with that. The question then now again then becomes exactly what you asked. Okay, so he did that too, based on what the Israelis were telling him, and it completely backfired. It's the worst decision he's ever made. He's in a terrible situation as a result of it. Isn't it time for him to just break? And the problem is, are you going to say no to all of that money? That is, the influence that a lot of those different major donors have, not just with him, but with the Republican Party as a whole. And that question constantly has to be part of the equation and part of the reason as to why we end up in these type of scenarios, despite everything that he promised that he would not do.
So, okay. Well, I see that. But there's so much moneyed interest, or so much direct money that Donald Trump could be making, from the other Gulf nations. I mean, they're not shy about bribing him. UAE probably has bribed him a lot more than the rest, though, unfortunately. And UAE is basically little Israel at this point in the way that they're operating in the Gulf. But there's a lot of money he could be making from Iran as well. So I don't feel like it's just the $250 million that Miriam Adelson gave him that's causing him.
But that's not money that he gets in the same way. These are political donations that goes into the political machinery.
Yeah.
Right. And the Iranians cannot give any money to any, given the sanctions and a whole set of different other factors. And frankly, the GCC states, to the best of my knowledge, you should talk to Eli, who's much more of an expert on this, or people like Ben Freeman and Nick Cleveland in my shop, who follow these issues very closely. They've not played the game the same way as the Israelis have, or the pro-Israel crowd has, which is a lot of political donations.
Yeah, but they have a lot more bandwidth to do so, because
of course,
there's a lot of Zionist advocacy networks within the United States of America that no other country, not even just the Gulf nations, but I don't think there is a British lobby in the same way, or a level of pervasive British influence in the same way that Israeli influence exists over American foreign and certainly even domestic policy.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to understand there is, diminishingly so, but there is a population within the United States, whether it is Christian Zionists or others, who define themselves as pro-Israel and are putting both money and constituency pressure in almost every congressional district. Whereas you don't have a lot of people in the United States running around having fuzzy feelings about the UAE or Saudi Arabia, and as a result are both combining political donations and political constituency pressure in favor of those countries. So it's a very, very different scenario.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, the influence is definitely there. I wonder how much pressure is enough for Donald Trump to crack, especially because unlike previous administrations who maintain some degree of ideological loyalty to NATO Atlanticism, to constant intervention, there's varying degrees of intervention. You got the neocons on one side, you got the Obama strategy on the other. Donald Trump is more pragmatic than they are in some ways, and I guess my question is like, when does that pragmatism kick in? Like, do you feel like it's going to happen? Are you positive about the way things are going so far? Because I am not, certainly. I feel like
Yeah.
it's going to get worse before it gets better, and I don't even know when it will get better. Considering that the Trump administration's assessment so far is like, well, we can manipulate the stock market. People are tapping into their strategic reserves. It doesn't seem to be running out, the oil,
Sure.
regardless of the 20% of the entire energy supply, or almost 100% of the entire energy supply of the Asian markets is completely shut off at this point, or diminished dramatically. And he
Yeah.
seems to not care about that at all.
So let me give you a couple of factors as to why I think I wouldn't call myself optimistic. That's almost a dirty word in this context, but perhaps less pessimistic than you are. First, I think it's important to recognize no politician, no president would pick this fight unnecessarily. I saw that during the Obama years as well, in which many of us who were working with the Obama administration back then were a little bit frustrated that he wasn't pushing back harder against AIPAC and the Israelis during the run-up to getting the deal. And the answer essentially was, look, there's no reason to have that fight until there is a deal. Once there is a deal, that's when it's worthwhile having that fight because you have no other choice. But to have that fight over something that has not yet materialized, you actually don't have a deal, may end up becoming a completely unnecessary fight because you have the fight, but you may end up not getting the deal. And then, we wasted all your political capital for something that never came about. So I don't think we will know for certain whether he really will push back or not until there is a deal. That's when the moment where truth will come and we'll say, okay, you got the deal now. Are you going to fight for it? Are you going to be willing to push back against all of these different forces? We're now going to try to sabotage it. Now, when you know what you can get because you have it in your hand, that's one thing. The other, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. The other thing you're saying.
Actually, why don't you ask? Because I kind of lost my train of thought.
Oh, damn it.
It will come back to me.
Okay. Well, the question I have is damn it. Now I'm losing my train of thought. God damn it.
All right, I regain mine if we want me to go
Okay,
back
go
to
ahead.
me.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. The other factor is simply looking at the situation objectively. Trump needs a deal.
Yeah, oh,
And so do
yes,
the
yes.
Iranians. I mean, look, they cannot continue this situation. We're going to see oil prices go up much, much further in a couple of weeks, perhaps even as short as in 2 weeks, because of the accumulated problems that are being created as a result of what the situation is. And we're actually in a period in which the Iranians are not letting in or letting out 25 to 30 ships a day now, which is a significant increase. But nevertheless, it's not enough to be able to compensate for all of the problems that are occurring. And then we're getting closer to the midterms and inflation, all of these different things. He just needs to get out of this situation, and he can't unless there is a deal. And the same is true for the Iranians. The Iranian, I forgot which institute in Iran just came out with a number saying the Iranian economy is going to shrink 10% this year as a result of the war. And the Iranian situation, economic situation, was terrible even before this war. They need sanctions relief. They absolutely need to have it. And it's not just an economic issue. If they don't have sanctions relief, they cannot rebuild themselves. If they cannot rebuild themselves, they will become weaker. And if they're weaker, they will become an easier target for Israel or anyone else who wants to attack them again. So it's actually from a security standpoint, they need to have the sanctions relief in order to be able to rebuild themselves, to be able to defend themselves. So I know that is rational, that is logical, and unfortunately, we have far too little rationality and logic in decision making, but it is also an objective reality. It will be suicidal for both sides to actively opt against a deal. Now, they may mess it up, they may commit too many mistakes, they may have the situation in the Gulf, in the Persian Gulf right now, lead to an escalation that they can't control. But that's different from saying that they will choose away from it because they think they're going to be better off without a deal.
Wouldn't the realist framework here be to lean heavily into China as an alternative market. I mean, they already kind of are doing that. They've increased the amount of oil that they're sending to China. Um, Obviously, that's not going to make up for the Strait of Hormuz being closed from the Chinese perspective, but whatever shrinkage they experience through not being able to participate in the global economy, wouldn't they be able to make up for it with by entering into the Chinese market? I mean, I don't know if the Chinese
So,
government is even invested in doing that.
so by and large, no, because years of sanctions have already made them completely dependent on China. It's their biggest trading partner. And they would like to trade more, but the Chinese do not have a need for that. And reality is that beyond oil, there's not a lot that the Iranians can sell the Chinese. Now, oil, of course, is very, very important for them. They're buying a lot from the Chinese, but there's resistance to that also in Iran because it actually destroyed a lot of the local industry. What they need is diversification. They need to make sure that they're not too dependent on any party.
Yeah.
And they have become tremendously non-diverse as a result of US sanctions, chasing away almost every other economic partner that they had or could have had. And they have increasingly become dependent on trade with Russia and China. And again, their economies are not particularly compatible. The Russians have gas and oil, so they're not going to buy that from the Iranians. And there's not much the Russians have except for weapon systems. And you can't build an economy on that. You need much, much more than that. So the Iranians are suffering from the fact that the sanctions have made them too dependent on just a few actors.
So before I let you go, and thank you so much for coming on, let's work through the two sides. You got America on the one side. We're not talking about Israel. What do you think are the biggest hangups from the American side, and what do you think the biggest hangups from the Iranian side are, in terms of like why they're still butting heads and they haven't been able to arrive at a manageable conclusion? And how does Trump get out of this while still trying to save face, even though everyone that's even a little bit knowledgeable about what took place already knows that America's bleeding right now. This is just about stopping the hemorrhaging, right? And so is Iran, but obviously, given the nature of asymmetric warfare, Iran being a middle power that now has more leverage than it did before 90 days ago, it means that it's a victory for Iran nonetheless. It might be a Pyrrhic victory, but it's a victory regardless. And for America, it's going to be a defeat no matter what. But how will America get out of this while saving face? And what are some of the major hangups, in your opinion, between America and Iran?
Look, if you compare this to the scenario before the war was started, it's very difficult to say that the US came out of this a winner.
Yeah.
But if you compare the scenario between continuing the war and striking a deal, there's a lot of wins that can be achieved there, particularly mindful of the fact that if they do strike a deal that has sanctions relief, it actually benefits the American economy. Because if it opens up the Iranian economy for American companies, we're talking about the largest economy that will have opened up since the fall of the Soviet Union. So there's huge opportunities. And the compatibility, by the way, between the Iranian and the American economies are far, far greater. So there's huge potential there. And that would be a win. And, and with that would probably come a very different relationship with Iran. And Trump will very much probably like to frame this as his legacy is that he ended the enmity. Look, I think Trump was looking for legacy. And if the legacy could be achieved by doing regime change in Iran, and he would be the president that finally got rid of the Islamic Republic, perfect, strong legacy. If that doesn't work and he strikes a deal with Iranians and he's the one who ended the enmity, that's good enough, legacy. But he has to be something big in order for it to be legacy. Whereas a small deal, a partial deal, etc., that's not going to cut it. Now, when it comes to the major hiccups, I don't think at this point the memorandum has a lot of problems on the American side. It's mostly on the Iranian side. And now it's just come back to the issue, can Trump be trusted? Is he really going to be able to deliver on the sanctions relief? Is this not another deception in which they're just going to try to use the next couple of months to prepare themselves for the next war. Once he is past the midterms and he's a lame duck president, but he's also much freer to do things because he doesn't have to care about polls and things of that nature. All of those issues are now really weighing heavily on the Iran side. And there's also another problem that I think the two sides are just very different. The Iranian experience in the JCPOA is that they under-negotiated the details of the sanctions relief. So, for instance, there's a snapback mechanism that in case the Iranians did not live up to the deal, any party could just snap back all of the UN sanctions. There was no mechanism that said if the US doesn't deliver on the sanctions relief or if it walks out of the deal, there's something that would be punishing the US or benefiting the Iranians. So the Iranians were already upset in 2016, thinking that the sanctions relief for never really materialized in the way that they expected it. So now they want to negotiate a much more detailed agreement to make sure that they don't get screwed over again. It just so happens to be that President Trump hates details and wants to have a page and a half with a bunch of principles, etc., with very little detail. It's just creating a disconnect between the Iranian and the American side. Even if they may agree on the principles, it's just not enough for the Iranians.
Okay. I mean, I can see that. But I also feel like there's a constant spoiler in this entire process that's in Trump's ear, and it's very clear that they have unprecedented access. I mean, the fact that they okay, I said last question, but this is actually the last question. What do you make of hiring a Foundation for Defending Democracy guy into the negotiation team midway through this process? I believe like 2 weeks ago they did this. I find that insane. I mean, that's an Israeli cutout. No disrespect to the people on the Hill that you sometimes work alongside, but original name Emmett, 2001, directly designed to do Hasbara and to enforce Israel's wishes upon the Hill. And they haven't really shied away from doing that. And they're very clearly, I mean, their talking points are being distributed by the White House. I mean, they are almost singularly responsible. I mean, they're not singularly responsible, but there's one think tank you can point to that has been agitating for this war and goading for this war and got the war that they wanted and are still complaining about it nonstop because it didn't go the way they thought it would. It's FDD.
Well, I mean, I mean, they think that the war would have been won if just Trump bombed more.
Yeah, but that wasn't happening.
They're proudly bragging about how they are a major force behind this war. So we're not talking about some of these neocons who were pushing for war, but while making it look as if they actually wanted a different outcome. No, they're absolutely open about the fact that they wanted war. And everything else you said is absolutely true. They were the key authors of maximum pressure sanctions. They were the key authors of the blockade of the blockade. They bear a tremendous amount of responsibility for the absolute disaster that not only this war, but a lot of the sanctions policies have become. I think it's an absolutely terrible look. Now, that specific person was already, may not have formally been a part of the negotiating team, but he was brought in already in the Pakistan round of talks. So he was there already back then. Now, is he in a position to sabotage? I mean, if you ask my preference, yeah, he should absolutely not. Anyone who's from a think tank that proudly brags about how they helped start this war has shown themselves to be dead set enemies of diplomacy. And, FDD would be very upset if you accuse them of supporting diplomacy. So to have someone like that in the negotiating team, yeah, to me, it does make no sense whatsoever.
Yeah. So that's not, you don't think it's an indication that this is more leverage for the Israeli side?
No, I do.
Yeah.
It's just that it's one data point amongst many, and there's others that may be more problematic, and there's others that point in a slightly different direction. But I think it's no doubt that it's, in my view at least, a very negative data point, but it's not the totality of the picture, of course.
Okay. All right, Sridhar Parsi, thank you so much for coming on. And
thanks so much for having me.
Find your Substack. It's linked in the top of the chat, substack.com/@Tritaparsi, Executive Vice President of the Quincy Institute. Thank you so much for coming on. And
Thanks so much for having us,
hopefully
Hasan. Really appreciate it.
we'll see you again
Thank you.
next time. All right,
Awesome.
bye.
Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.
Bye. All right. That was a great conversation as always. Russia hit Romania. I want Hasan to cover these things, man. Wait, what? What the fuck? Russia hit Romania. Also, is my eye getting worse? Or is it just because there's Benadryl on it, Benadryl cream on it, and that's why it just looks shinier? It certainly isn't getting better. Doesn't feel like it's getting better. It's just the lighting. Maybe. Looks more red. You're getting much better at these interviews. Thank you, chatter. That's why, I got to keep doing it. It's definitely gotten worse, Law. Bro, what the fuck did I miss? Is it a bug bite? Did you get slapped? It's a bug bite. That is not a mosquito bite. You're going to be Peter Piker. Is it painful? No, it's not. Not even a little bit. It's not painful. It's not very itchy. I don't know what the fuck it is. It's just bulbous. Urgent care now. Does it feel hot to touch? Not necessarily. Look up brown recluse spider bite now. I don't think it's a brown recluse spider bite. Brown recluse spider bite can cause severe localized tissue damage. Symptoms often start with intense pain and a bluish purple or red mark that may form a blister. While most bites heal on their own within 3 weeks, severe bites can develop into deep necrotic ulcers that take months to recover. Clean. Gently wash the bite side with mild soap and water. Ice. Apply cool, damp cloth. Yeah, it's not even painful. Elevate. Keep the affected limb elevated. Stay calm and still. Limit movement of the bitten area to help prevent venom from spreading. ID the spider. Also, yeah, I don't think it's brown recluse. Take a Benadryl pill, not just the cream. It can be a mosquito bite. Some mosquitoes cause me to get big like that. Fire and Rescue Services rushed to the site of a Russian drone attack on a residential building in Romania. What the fuck? Okay, you guys wanted me to cover this, but what am I supposed to cover about this issue? Like, you know what I mean? I'm from around the New York area. It's very likely you're just allergic to the venom and whatever bit you. Most likely a mosquito. Wait, what? No, I didn't. This happened here in Los Angeles. Get it treated, bro. When that blister bursts, gonna get infected. Wait, what? You think it's a blister? I don't think it's a blister. It just looks like an inflammation due to a bug bite. God, it's the worst fucking chat to... I hate this shit. I hate this shit so much because chatters, WebMD ass chatters in the fucking chat. You get so annoying. Anyway, listen. Here, we'll talk about New York politics real quick. Gotta do a brief sidestep into this. Antonio Reynoso and Adriano Espaillat. You might recognize both of these names. Antonio Reynoso is up against Claire Valdez, and Adriano Espaillat is going up against Dara Liza, who I recently had on the broadcast, can each expect 7 figures spent independently on their behalf in the coming weeks. A Democratic operative familiar with the matter told me, but did not disclose the source of the funding. There's also some good news. There's also some decent news, at least. And that is that Zoran Mamdani is leaning in. Zoran Mamdani is leaning at potentially an endorsement of Dara Liza as well. Oh my God, I just had a cancer knock on my door for Adriana Espaillat. Told her I'm on Team Daraliza. Good. Stop listening, chat. Go to urgent care after stream or set up a doctor's appointment with your normal doctor as soon as possible. Okay, everybody calm down. To me, that nurse here, to me, that looks like a blister. I mean, it's not. Maybe. It feels like it could be a blister, but what fucking causes a blister? It's also massive. I don't know if it's filled with fluid. I feel like a bite, something bit me and I had an allergic reaction. Maybe a spider bite or something. Skeeter syndrome is a large local inflammatory reaction to mosquito bites. It causes redness, warm, swelling, and or itching where the mosquito bit you. The area is sometimes hard and painful. It can sometimes make you wonder if you have a skin infection. Is most common in young kids. Rarely you can cause fever and hives in many of your body or swollen lymph nodes. What? I don't think it's fucking Skeeter syndrome. Did this thing just pop up this morning? Yes. And in 9 months, I will have a beautiful face, baby. Bro, listen to BDO. Listen to us MDs. It's an abscess. Do you have an erection? It's a kissing bug bite. I've never seen this bug before. And no, I don't think it's that. Therapist here. Chat is just a manifestation of the inner critic and should be almost completely disregarded right now. You're not the most reliable narrator when you're anxious. It's probably a hex. Doctor here, you're looking at a classic case of ligma.
I thought
What is? It's really refreshing to see.
difficult.
Oh damn! I'm getting positive feedback from my Trevor Noah conversation on Twitter. That's rare. It's really refreshing to see a smart political take with the current state of the world. You almost forget that you can have popular streamers share cogent, nuanced thoughts. A not insignificant portion of the country sees this and thinks this is the same as Nick Fuentes' insanity.
My opinion on this is I'm a harm reduction voter. I'm a harm reduction believer, I guess, to a certain degree. I recognize that class consciousness is the #1 problem in this country. We do not have class consciousness and we do not have political education. And without class consciousness and political education, you can't have organizing on the basis of class. So in order to foment class consciousness and to engage in agitative propaganda, as as is the Marxist tradition, I believe that elections are one of the most viable routes to reach the masses.
Okay.
Because I think a lot of people, no matter how radical they present themselves as, or no matter how critical they are of Bernie Sanders, a lot of people self-identified as socialists in that insurgent campaign in 2016 when Bernie ran against Hillary Rodham Clinton. That juxtaposition of a left populist force, an anti-establishment force who was unbowed and said that they were a socialist and weren't afraid of the moniker, going up against an establishment, like an establishment figurehead like Hillary Rodham Clinton, made a lot of people self-identify as socialists. It made a lot of people go, wait a minute, I agree with that guy. Right? I agree with that guy. I didn't know that this designation existed. Or I was so negatively propagandized against what I thought socialism was, but it turns out it's this, old curmudgeon, right? And who is fighting for me, who has been fighting for me for 800 years at this point. So that's why I believe that, and I've seen this in the data as well. Like whenever you got an AOC style figure or Zohran Mamdani, the DSA rises. The DSA's ranks explode. Right? There's so many new paid members, or paying members. Sorry, that joined the organization, and the DSA is very good at instigating class consciousness and also doing political education. It's a massive institution with many different caucuses, and they're constantly fighting one another. You go to the national conference and you're like, I like them all. I have no, I don't have, it's like picking favorite children. You can't do it, right? But they're constantly warring. There's a democratic process. It's complex. It's very diverse. But you have every different tendency from liberals, social democrats, all the way to Marxist-Leninists, Maoist, third worldists, people who do not participate in democracy at all because they think it's ridiculous and counter-revolutionary. You have all of that, right? And that is political education, and that is an absolute necessity to make the changes in this country. And I see electoralism as a route to foment class consciousness through proving that alternative modes of governance are viable. And that's why I look to people like Zoran as movement leaders in that regard, because every day that he's a good mayor of New York is a day where we are able to tackle the stigma associated with socialism. Every day that he's a handsome, charismatic fellow that gets to improve people's lives is a day where more New Yorkers go, you know what, maybe I'm a socialist after all. I'm not. I understand that you have to organize with the masses that you have, not the masses that you believe should exist. And many people in the United States of America are self-identifying as liberals. That's mass politics. That's what the social base. That's where the social base is at. They self-identify as liberals because they don't really understand what that means. If you were to pick apart their worldview and offer them a little bit of political education, you might find that they're actually not liberals at all. Maybe they're socialists. Maybe they're Marxists. Maybe they're, they have a different ideological tendency than liberalism, which is basically just the monoculture that we've taken for granted. So at a time when liberalism is failing, and the Democratic Party, as the liberal Democratic Party, is failing to keep up with the reactionary forces on the Republican side, I believe that it's important to try to push for as many radical candidates as possible and change the makeup, the political makeup of this unbelievably weak party that is not a real political party in the sense that they exist in Europe and in parliamentary systems. There's no paid membership structure, like paying membership structure, but a party that simply is a holdover for a litany of different corporate interests and maybe some advocacy groups on the side if you want to throw them a bone every now and then because you need door knockers. That's a weak party. That's a party that you can seize. That's a party that you can take advantage of. Because at the end of the day, I have no loyalty to the brand that is the Democratic Party.
Right. Okay.
And I don't think anyone should have any loyalty to any party. I think you should see politicians as an agent for change because that's what they are. Are they making those changes for their corporate benefactors, or are they making those changes for you? Are they promising to you that they are going to change your lives for the better? Or are they telling you better things are not possible, which is what a lot of Democrats do, unfortunately. Even if I know a politician personally, Zoran is a great example of this. AOC is another example of this. If they do things that I don't like, I'll say it. I'll be like, no, this was wrong. I disagree with you on this. And I will hold them to account because at the end of the day, they're public servants. They work for us, for all of us, right? There shouldn't be any loyalty to a party or a brand, especially if that party hasn't done enough to deserve your loyalty. You can have an ideological commitment to a movement. I certainly do. And I have my moral convictions, and I demand that the elected representatives that I push for also have similar shared moral convictions. But outside of that, I don't really care how we get there. Another Deng Xiaoping quote I'll use. I don't know why I keep using Deng Xiaoping quotes on this,
cool.
on this conversation, but
also because it's Tuesday.
Yeah.
You know what they say about Tuesday and Deng Xiaoping?
What?
Nothing. Carry on.
I was very excited.
I know.
This guy caught us.
He said when market reforms were taking place in China, he said famously, a black cat or a white cat, it doesn't matter as long as it catches the rat. And that's the way I see it as well, where it's like I don't really care about what these brands are or what how people identify
focus
themselves.
too much on the labels and not on the outcome.
I care about changes. I care about necessary changes and getting those necessary changes across.
Has that gotten better? No? No? Stop touching it. Does it hurt? No. It doesn't. I think it did get better. It feels better. Looks like a bee sting, brother. That ain't no mosquito. I got bit while I was sleeping. You looked very handsome in this interview. Thank you. Dude, I have a PhD in bugs and you got bit by one of these. My mom says it looks so much better now that he has a spoon over it and I can't see it. Guys, I don't care about Harambe's 10-year anniversary. Okay, 10-year death anniversary. What is this?
Want to change that because that's where their bread is buttered. And they get very pissed off.
You say your whole life and your whole career, but take us back. What brings you to this point? Like, we meet you at this moment in your life, but like, how does Hasan Piker come to be? Like, where were you born? How were you raised?
I was born in America.
No, I'm not saying it like a border agent. I'm saying like, to me, I'm saying like a life story. You're so defensive about it.
I got scared.
This man is like, I'm like, where were you born? I was born here. I'm born in America.
I don't know if you heard, but the federal government's coming after me.
We actually need to talk about that. Yeah. But no.
So I need to say it. I was born here. I'm an American citizen. I could run for president. I would never do that, though. So don't get scared. Don't want to change that because that's where their bread is buttered. And they.
Anyway. MashaAllah. What the fuck? Bro, that's crazy. He came in all halal is over. It's over. He came in halal style, bro. It's over. He's bringing, oh my God, he has found the light of Allah. He has brought Islam into his life. He pulled his California King bedsheet on and went to work. You and who? What is this? The Aquarium? That's fucking crazy. What utility does this have? Yeah, you know how Wemby says he likes to read books when he's in the locker room before the game? It turns out the book that he likes to read, the Quran.
May Allah awaken the people and help them to see the evil doings of Israel and the United States.
Straight up, bro. Yeah, the book he was reading, in the name of Allah, read. It's the fucking first thing that Allah told the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Too much reading and all of a sudden you're reading the Quran. Buddy. Check out our boy Kyrie. I saw the bourgeoisie fears memory because memory teaches resistance. Yeah. It weighs on our consciousness, dude. Dude, is Kyrie moving from like flat earth shit to like actual Marxist literature? Is that what it is, you think? It's very funny that Ben Shapiro thinks he can get an increasingly anti-Semitic online right to look past his clear ethno-chauvinism by going, look, it says Muslim on the ceiling. Yeah, Ben Shapiro, no Jew has ever asked a politician to put on a kippah.
The long robe, marked by an Arsenal jersey, says on it Emirates, and it says on the sleeve, visit Rwanda. Again, I'm not sure you could possibly signal your various allegiances to foreign interests better than this, but, sort of fascinating. She is clearly wearing a scarf.
By the way, they went to a mosque, right? That's what it is. That's why she did that. But also, Ben, if I'm you, I'm not talking about, I'm never bringing up politicians doing certain, religious shows for different ethnic or religious constituencies, right? Like you're Jewish. That's insane. Like Zohran Mamdani has done this. He visited the fucking the Rebbe's grave, dude. What are you talking about? It's one of the most common images that anti-Semites use, and it's not even just like anti-Semitic at this point. It's like in mass usage is the idea of like going to Israel and kissing the wall and putting on the yarmulke. The fuck do you mean? Like, that's such a funny thing to bring up, because ask the average American which politician, or which religious group gets more like shows of admiration and like symbolic shows of respect in the United States of America. Islam or Judaism? Because it's like, majority Christian nation. So out of the non-majority religions in the United States of America, which of the two other Abrahamic religions do politicians heavily show respect to? I don't think people are going to say, oh yeah, it's obviously fucking Islam. Islam gets the same level of recognition as like Zoroastrianism in the United States of America.
To look like hijab. There's no question that's what she is doing. It is indistinguishable.
Yeah, here is Zohran visiting the Ohel of the Lubavitcher Rebbe this evening. So disappointing from Chabad Lubavitch to invite Mamdani. I mean, what are you talking about? Soda trick worked. It looks less swollen now. Let's go. Well, larger area of coverage. It's cooler. Trick question. It's Baha'i. True. Yeah, the majority of politicians are Islamophobic in this country. It's so stupid for Ben Shapiro to bring this up.
From hijab. Millions, hundreds of millions of women all over the world are forced into these.
What do they mean disappointing? Are they calling Chabad anti-Semitic now? Yes, they're saying Zohran Mamdani is an anti-Semite and he shouldn't be visiting the grave of the Rebbe.
Sorts of head coverings. And so it's kind of strange that AOC would don one in the United States. Now, I know the response that's coming here, right? Because I wear a funny head covering, right? I'm an Orthodox Jew. I wear a kippah or a yarmulke. How dare I talk about AOC wearing hijab? Now, you'll notice I'm not talking about Ilhan Omar wearing hijab. She's a Muslim woman. She wants to wear a hijab, her business. But let me start with the dumb and wrong comparison. Politicians who will put on a yarmulke at Jewish events. So first of all, no Jew has...
Wait, what? AOC is a politician putting on a headscarf at a Muslim event. It's literally the same, dumbass. What the fuck are you talking about?
Ever asked a politician to put on a kippah? It is not a thing. As an Orthodox Jew, okay, let me just say this. Don't do this. No one's asking you to do this. It's silly. It's really stupid. You have no religious or moral obligation to wear a kippah or to cover your head in a synagogue if you're a...
Oh, Ben's argument is that the scary Muslims forced AOC to do a head covering, whereas our Jewish institutions, they don't even ask for it, and the politicians are like, please let me put on a kippah. Yeah, how about it's just respect on both accounts? Have you thought about that? Because I don't think the fucking rabbi is like, you better put this fucking kippah on right now, boy. Right? Like when, Trump is visiting and kissing the wall or whatever, right? But It's just respect, right? I don't think the imam was like, AOC, you better put this fucking turban on.
A non-Jewish man. There's literally no reason to do it. So don't do it. It's stupid. It's dumb and you look dumb.